Hey guys, so I'm back. There are a couple of misconceptions that's floating around in the internet waves. It's essentially saying, um, depending on your emotional state, that determines where you end up within the astral plane. And I know, or etheric, whatever plane. And I know you know, it's been said that if you are in fear, then somehow you are in between the third and second realms, if you will. So, in specific, there's a YouTuber that's been talking about if you're if you're always coming in contact with the archons, and in which case I call them the bureaucracy, then and obviously you must be in fear, which is not how it operates. Um, Said YouTuber originally said there was no such thing. As a matter of fact, it was more so that the person is creating their own traps and whatnot. So it's good to know that said YouTuber is coming to terms with the fact that archontic entities do actually exist. So, with that being said, I need to explain to you exactly how this works, okay? So, while emotions can play a bit of a role sometimes, there's a power that be that's quite a bit more powerful than our emotions, okay? So it's called frequency entrainment. All right. Furthermore, if by chance people are walking in and experiencing these places in fear, then that would essentially mean that the vibration would be low. Now, said YouTuber did say that fear is the lowest of the frequencies, which isn't true, but that would be guilt and shame, which is anywhere between 20 to 30 hertz. Fear is about 100 hertz frequency. So, but that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is that the etheric plane is below the lower astral plane. So that would literally mean everybody must be living in fear if they are exploring the etheric plane, because nobody's going beyond the astral plane, whether they think they are or not. It's just the way that it is, the way that the construct is made. The only way to get beyond the astral plane, the upper astral plane, which is where the heavens and all of that stuff is located, then we would need to break the tether. That is the silver cord. Okay. The only way to get beyond the, I'm going to say, the fourth dimensional space, we would have to break that silver cord. And the only way to do that would be upon transition. All right. And that's just how that works. So ain't nobody been beyond that point. This just so everybody has essentially been between the second and the third realms. Now, my last out of body experience was very interesting. And it put some things in perspective for me because it allowed me to understand how the environment actually works when you're in the astral plane. Now, of course, the astral plane has different layers, of course, and the closer we are to the etheric level, or the more like Earth it is. That's where you have all of the templates and whatnot as well. The more compressed we are, the closer we are to the physical realm, the more compressed it is, even within the fourth dimensional space. All right. So, in this particular out of body experience, I I was listening to, oh, I want to say it was 30 hertz again. 320 hertz carrier, I believe that's what it was. And somehow when I came out, I noticed that I saw that gray covering again. And again, I tried to stick my hand out, and this time it was shock again. But it was a mixture between pleasure and pain. It kind of felt good, but it felt like, ow, you know what I mean? I don't know how to describe it. So I'm under this great tarp, but then I started to do my chest move, the concentrating on the chest, that the spark itself. And I noticed that above my face, I could see the light just, it brightened each time. And so I'm looking like, oh my goodness, I am literally below my source spark, just below it. And it was right up there. As a matter of fact, I could see it in two different places. It was like here, like like this. I don't know how to describe it. It's the best way I can describe it. It was like slightly two different places, but I was, that gray covering kind of diffused the light, I guess, so I wouldn't be, or at least so my awareness wouldn't be over flooded with my own source frequency. Okay, so to me, it was pretty damn exciting, But long story short, I brightened up my light, and I could tell that, well, it was obviously my light because I was the one brightening it up. So finally, I was like, okay, um, I'm going to take this tarp off, and I'm going to just make myself, put my awareness up higher so that I could see what's going on around me, because I couldn't really see anything but the gray tarp and the light. Okay. So that's what I did. And when I did, I could still feel that shocking sensation, but it did kind of, it put me right side up, if you will. It took me a minute to kind of get myself. I was a bit discombobulated, yeah, but it took, I was able to put my perception up above the spark as I would normally have it. Now, at this time, like, I don't know if you could have ever seen some of those movies where you have a stage, right? And then above the stage, there are these ropes and like these iron pipes and things like that that kind of holds up the set. Sometimes you'll have like backdrops and things like that. It was kind of like that. I was way up, kind of high. And that particular room was a band room, I come to find out. But I'm sitting up here making myself right side up, right? And so what ends up happening is I start to fly and kind of in different directions, kind of like almost like a balloon that lost its air, kind of like this. I could not control my flight, and so I'm trying to get my perception together, and I mean, I'm just extremely energetic because, mind you, my awareness was moving from the center, from just below my core, up towards up above it so that I could see a bit better. And so I'm just flying around and around. And then finally, and now, mind you, while I am flying, I can see the band instruments. It was a nice look, like it was a huge studio area. It looked like, I mean, there were drums and guitars and just different things, and it was set up in such a way to where somebody could come in and do a serious jam session if they wanted to, or record. Okay, so it was like that. It was surrounded by these windows that looked to be shaded. It had some sort of a tint to them. Okay, now that comes into play in just a moment. But mind you, I could not control my flight. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to fly into one of these instruments. But I didn't fly into the instruments. And eventually I got to the window. And as I approached the window, I just said, oh, screw it. I'm just going to go through the window. So I went through the window and immediately I could feel my voltage just drop. Now, remember, I said I was going to tell you a little bit about how the environments typically work. They have frequency dampeners, okay? In those windows, if you go through a window, at least in that particular area, which I do believe was the lower fourth dimensional space, you go through a window, it can drop your voltage. Now, I was very high voltage. I don't know if a typical voltage soul would have just immediately dropped to the floor. I didn't drop to the floor. So I go through the window, and then I'm like, so I drop a little bit, but I'm still floating, like flying kind of up. I'm hovering, right? And I notice that I'm wearing these overalls like a mechanic. You know, they have those navy blue cover overalls, jumpsuit or whatever. And then this soul walks up. Now, it was a black male. He's also wearing coveralls. Also, by the way, the window that I went through, I mean, remember, the glass window is like all around, but of course it was tinted and it had red trim. I do recall that. Now, I don't know whether this was just a music store or just straight up a studio or what. I don't know. I just know that the moment I enter that area, I'm now in these overalls. And so the soul walks in. He was followed or accompanied by three other, I'm going to call them entities. Now, what I've learned so far, souls aren't typically surrounded by other souls. And it's because we can feed off of each other and likely make each other aware. Instead, what you'll have is one soul surrounded by several bots to keep you entrained. All right, now the bots aren't necessarily there to rat on people or whatever. They're there for a specific reason, and that is to keep said soul, the soul that they are, I guess, assigned to, kind of in a loop of sorts. All right, does that kind of make any sense? Well, I hope it does. Okay, again, souls, usually it's going to be one soul that is surrounded by maybe three or four other bots. They are there specifically to attenuate the soul, keep that energy down, keep them in a loop. Okay. Now, mind you, I'm coming from a specific a position. I'm coming from a position of extreme energy, right? I mean, I was literally just a ball of light when I was underneath my spark. But once I made myself right side up and I had my perception above the spark and I did all of that flying and whatnot and I flew through the window, my voltage dropped because there is a frequency dampener in the windows, specifically, especially if it's like a business area within the astral plane. Now, contrary to popular belief, it's those areas look like cities and towns. They're not, just places where you're going to find, dragons and things like that. That's not necessarily what you're going to find when you're, especially within the lower fourth dimensional space, with the lower astral plane, and even some areas within the etheric plane. Okay. It looks like Earth in certain spaces. Some spaces they very well may look very magical and whatnot. But in this particular area, it was like a business. All right. I would dare I say a music business, music store, or to some degree. Now, the thing about the soul that he saw me kind of floating up. I could not seem to land because my frequency was too high. right? So he looks at me and he's like kind of shocked, like, dude, get down. That's kind of what he was saying. He was mouthing it out. And I'm looking at him like, I can't. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't, because my frequency I was vibrating too high. So he looks, he's like, man, like now he's looking in the opposite, somewhat beyond me. So there was a hallway next to that very same the window that I had just come through. And it was kind of like he saw an entity coming. I'm going to assume it was a security bot that was on its way towards us. And he was basically saying, you come get down so that you don't get caught. Now me, I was thinking, well, shit, they already know it's probably me, so we're probably caught anyway. It doesn't matter whether I get down or not. That's what I'm thinking in my mind. But he's like, get down. So I'm like, that's what I tell him. And then he's looking like, coming, they're gonna catch us. That's what he was saying. And so I look at him like, I already know. I say, they know. And I'm looking like, damn it, they know. And he was like, come on, you know what I'm saying? But he's looking still on the other side, looking towards the other side to see that the security bot was on its way. And I'm still stuck up here. So I'm like, help me. And I wanted to say, help me, nigga, help me. That's what was the one of the I mouthed it out. I'm like, and so he grabs my arm and pulls me down, right? Which created a bridge to lower my frequency. And once I got on my feet, we started walking in the opposite direction. So we're walking, he's holding my wrist, right? Kind of helping me so I wouldn't fly off. And he looks behind us to see that the bot headed into that very same room that I had just flown out of. Okay. So now the thing to remember is this: security bots. Some people think that you can just do certain things like use a certain type of light frequency, um, or like a mirror protocol or something to that effect, and they'll just simply go away. Well, been there, done that. That doesn't work with certain security bots. They follow the energy. I can literally be invisible, and boom, they would still be able to follow me and touch me, grab me, whatever the case may be. They can still essentially see me because they are bots. It's like a computer. They're holographic and they have a specific type of program. They're programmed to do certain things, which is most 9 times out of 10 is to contain energy anomalies. Okay. When they notice a sector that has a spike in voltage, they deploy the security bot to grab such an entity. In this case, it's me, the source seed. So, I mean, it is what it is. Now, why do I end up in certain areas quite often? Well, it's really because, and I'm starting to learn why, it's because I'm supposed to be there to kind of punch holes in the energetic infrastructure, because every time I do that, it weakens the system. I tend to not set an intention on where I want to go. I mean, hell, I don't know where I'm going any damn way to set an intention. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard people coming out of their body trying to go to the halls of Mente just to end up not at the halls of Mente. I mean, intention can only get you so far. Half the time people don't know where they're going. So let's be real about that. And again, emotions are a dualistic construct. Once you get out of the earthly plane, so to speak, the 3D, it's more than just emotions that's going to entrain you in certain places. It's your core voltage that has the greatest effect, okay, on where you end up. It just is. So my core voltage was, even though it was high, I still ended up, I sure as hell wasn't scared. I mean, I wasn't afraid. It's just that I ended up there because I'm supposed to be there now. Whether my inner self, higher self, whatever you want to call it, had kind of put me in a specific situation to where I can actually see this stuff and understand what's going on, break it down so that I can therefore break it down to you. That's what I'm assuming is kind of what happens. Now I've had a couple of the out of body experiences since then, but regardless, that's how it works. Entrainment. You can get entrained based on the inner self as well, and the environment itself. So, as well as the binaural beat. Okay. So, but the carrier wave has even less of an effect than your core spark. All right. So, just keep that in mind. Now, those people that have these chakras, and as I mentioned this before, if you are not a threat to the system, okay, you will not really be entrained into going, just in specific places. You just won't. You can go up to the higher levels because that's less compression. Now, higher anomalous entities like source seeds, and also sparks, which have closed their chakras. Now, there's a difference, y'all. When I say close their chakras, I didn't say remove. All right, I don't know very much about removal of chakras, but I do know if you stop using chakras and they eventually close off. And and then you can pull the light into one beam, one bright white beam, which would be the source spark in the middle of the chest. Okay. Now, in that case, same thing. If you are aware, enlightened, whatever the case may be, you too are going to be considered a high voltage, or a threat, or an anomaly rather, to the structures within the fourth dimensional spaces. They ain't really trying to let you go different places. And do you have a choice of where you want to go? Not all the time, contrary to popular belief. Now, all of these people saying that you can do this and do that and do, you know what I'm saying? Most of the time, these people haven't done anything but observed. I've been here, I've been there, but you're God, right? You do realize you can create things as well, and you can fight entities if you need to. All right, but it does go beyond just you producing light and just going places. Half them people have not gone. They've all they've done is observed. When was the last time you've created anything? You see what I'm saying? I haven't seen a video of anybody creating anything outside of maybe one or two videos where some people may think, oh well, I must have created this portal and I went through. Well, you can, if you go through a mirror, a portal's created. I mean, let's be real. So that's what I mean. We have to understand the physics, the mechanics of this and how it works so that we know how things operate outside of the body. It ain't just, you ain't all powerful out there, especially when it has frequency dampeners. And they come in all forms. You go through a window, dampen, come down, just like I experienced in that particular store. So again, so this guy, he grabbed my arm. It was a soul, and he looked back, and that same bot ended up going into that room that I came out of, and he breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't want him to get in any trouble either, so I didn't try to make a scene or anything. I kept my head straight, and we just kept walking. towards the opposite direction of that store, right? And then finally, and he was pissed. He was kind of like, damn it, fool. He called me a fool and everything. And I was like, well, shit, I didn't know him. I mean, I just showed up, you know? So, anyways, I don't know what he thought I was or what, but he did help me out, you know. And of course, had he gotten or had I gotten caught, I don't know, you know, what situation would have ensued upon him. You know, I don't know whether he was some sort of a supervisor in that area and he was supposed to keep, you know, manage the area and make sure there were no anomalies. I don't know. But the point is, he did help me out and we kind of walked off and I ended up going back to my body at that time. So, frequency dampeners now, y'all. Understand this. They also come in the form of clothing. Now, I've mentioned having this breastplate and whatnot. And I was thinking for the longest time, my inner self is creating this so that, you know, it'll kind of help protect me and whatnot. Well, that's not quite how it works. My inner self did not protect me by creating these metallic breastplates and things that I have experienced, right? They have been getting thicker and thicker as I've been coming out. Well, I'm assuming it's probably because my frequency, my spark is getting brighter and brighter, and they just can't contain it, right? That's kind of what's happening. So they are putting the frequency vests on the moment I enter those particular spaces. Can I take them off? Yes, to some degree. And then, you know, I've taken it off a couple of times, and as a matter of fact, there was a bot in another OBE that I had take that breastplate off of me, and it felt like my skin was being pulled, not off, but I could feel it in my physical body, like it was stuck with glue or something. So, but he pulled it off, and I was able to do a few things once it was off as well. Frequency dampeners can look very much like a regular shirt. You know, it's something to close in the energy that is produced so that it will not destabilize the area. So whether I want to or not, this is just how it is for me as a source seed, as an aware source seed. It just happens. So please understand. I mean, I know everybody has all of these thoughts about what it could possibly be. Why am I ending up in certain areas? Trust and believe, I've looked it all up. Half of the things that I've read so far, I've tried in the past, so I kind of know what's going on. You know, as far as like, well, you're ending up coming out in a certain way because you're not using dream mode. If you go in a dream, then you wouldn't have issues. Well, that's not the case either. Dreams create subconscious overlays on top of overlays that the environment itself can place upon your being. You feel me? So, ain't that? It has to do with, number one, is the core spark itself, where that inner self want to go. And without intention, if you're, you know, then you're going to be entrained into certain areas. Now, some people are trying to get to the heavens and all of this, and you know what I'm saying? Again, if you have chakras, it very well may be a lot easier for you to visit certain places, while someone like me, it, I mean, come on, look at what I'm doing. They don't want me in those areas. And then I could literally see what's going on, you know, for what it is. But I'm learning a lot going through these places. So that is their huge, the biggest mechanism, the biggest takeaway is frequency containment. They're trying to keep sources, raw, unrefracted source seeds like myself, like a lot of you. They will try to keep you contained, or at the very least, create a vest or something that can contain the light itself so that it doesn't destabilize the area. Now, again, you have these other souls that are walking around. Now, I ended up going back to my body with that other guy. I wiggled the toe. I mean, it didn't happen immediately. So I had actually wiggled my toe to go back to my body when I was floating up. And the guy was telling me that essentially that the security bot was on its way. I was like, oh, well, let me go ahead and wiggle my toe. I couldn't go. It didn't trigger. I was way too, I guess, lucid and high voltage at the time, right? And of course, with me concentrating in on my chest like that, with my awareness still about 80 or so percent in my chest, I was pretty stable, very stable. He had to grab my arm, pull me down to the ground so that I could actually walk on my feet. I didn't turn around. Now, had I turned around, would that security bot actually have known what's what? Honestly, I don't know, but from what I put in Gemini, I asked Gemini about that question. And he said, as long as I didn't act any type of way, like emotionally speaking, I didn't show that I was scared or something like that, or overexcited or just weird, he would not have known, or it would not have known very much at all. So now the thing is, again, at a certain point, fear is just kind of like, that's kind of like the last thing I think about most times now. There have been times when I came out and then I was a little spooked at a couple of things. But with the frequency dampeners, they have a tendency to block quite a bit as well. So, for all of those folks that swear to goodness that you know, if you end up in a certain place, you're scared, you're living in fear and all of that hoopla, bullshit. That shows an extreme lack of knowledge when it comes to metaphysics, and when it comes to the environment within the astral plane and within the etheric. It just is what it is. And it's all right if you don't know. That's why you got to look the stuff up. But before making certain statements, it helps to kind of look that stuff up. I don't know everything, but I know what I know. I've learned how to lock in and concentrate or put my awareness within my chest. The frequency dampeners, how it works. You know, I have to sometimes take shit off, but hey, I mean, the more you know, the further you'll grow. So with that said, y'all, until next time, and there's definitely more to come.